is the country with the largest area in the world, which everyone knows. But how many times larger is Russia compared to the whole of Europe or individual European countries? What advantages and disadvantages does the vast territorial scale bring to Russia? Welcome to today's story. Russia has an area of about 17.1 million square kilometers, the largest in the world. Meanwhile, Europe has an area of about 10.5 million square kilometers. This 10.5 million square kilometers figure already includes nearly 4 million square kilometers belonging to Russia's European territory. S part is excluded, Europe. Thus, Russia alone is more than 2.5 times larger than Europe. What about compared to individual European countries famous for their area? Let's compare with France. France has an area of about 650,000 square kilometers. Russia is about 26.6 times larger. Germany has an area of over 350,000 square kilometers. Russia is about 48 times larger. Compared to the United Kingdom, Russia is over 70 times larger. Compared to Italy, a country with an area similar to Vietnam, Russia is about 57 times larger. Compared to Spain, a country with an area over 500,000 km², Russia is about 34 times larger. Compared to Ukraine, Russia's neighbor with an area over 600,000 square kilometers, Russia is about 28.3 times larger. In summary, any European country compared to Russia is like a dwarf. Even the whole of Europe placed next to Russia is just a dwarf. Russia is not only larger than every European country but also larger than the entire continent. The vastness gives Russia diversity in geography, climate, and natural resources. For example, Russia's climate is harsher than most European countries, especially in winter. Winter in Russia is famously cold, and other Europeans often cannot endure it. Temperatures in Russia can drop very low, while many European countries have milder climates. Russia also has more mountain ranges and plateaus than most European countries, except those with the Alps and Caucasus. Russia's diverse terrain, from the taiga forests, steppes to deserts and ice, creates significant differences. Russia also has rich and diverse ecosystems and wildlife. Russia's taiga forest is the largest coniferous forest in the world. It is also home to many characteristic species of flora and fauna like bears, Siberian tigers, or wolves. Russia's vast and sparsely populated land leads to uneven economic development and infrastructure. There are large cities like Moscow and St. Petersburg that are very developed, but many remote areas are underdeveloped and lack infrastructure. That is another difference between Russia and Europe. The most obvious major advantage is Russia's mineral resources compared to Europe. Russia has more reserves, production, and exports of oil and gas than any European country. They are one of the world's leading producers and exporters of oil and gas. Meanwhile, Europe depends heavily on imports, especially from Russia, to meet energy needs. Specifically, Russia has oil reserves about 14.4 times and gas reserves 13.6 times that of the whole of Europe combined. Russia's production and exports also far surpass those of European countries. They have estimated oil reserves of about 107.8 billion barrels, ranking 8th in the world. Europe has estimated oil reserves of only about 7.5 billion barrels, meaning just a fraction of Russia's. Russia's estimated natural gas reserves are about 38 trillion cubic meters, ranking first in the world. Europe has estimated natural gas reserves of only about 2.8 trillion cubic meters, not even a fraction of Russia's. But this also makes Russia heavily dependent on oil and gas. Russia's economy depends heavily on exporting these products. When oil and gas prices fall, Russia's economy suffers heavily. For example, when Russia conflicted with Ukraine, European countries punished Russia's economy by stopping imports of oil and gas from Russia. This dependence also reduces the motivation to develop other economic sectors. Fluctuating oil and gas prices and unstable markets make Russia's economy unstable. Some other resources can also be mentioned, for example, coal mines in Europe like in Germany. In Poland, coal mines are not as important or as large as those in Russia. The coal industry in Europe is declining due to environmental protection policies, which is somewhat Europe also has some mineral resources, but they are not as abundant as in Russia. European countries often have to import metals and minerals from Russia itself. Europe also has many forests that cannot compare to the vast forest area of Russia. Countries like Sweden, Finland, and Germany have developed timber industries that are still smaller than Russia's. Europe has many rivers and lakes that cannot compare to the scale of freshwater sources in Russia. Thus, considering resources, area, and geographical factors, Russia completely dominates compared to Europe. The score at this moment is heavily tilted in Russia's. What about the population? It is often said that people are the decisive factor in everything. In this regard, Russia's population is only about 1/5 of the entire European population. In recent years, Russia's population has been around 145 million people. Compared to Germany, a country known for its large population in Europe, Germany has a population of about 83 million people. Russia's population is about 1.76 times that of Germany. Russia's population is also more than twice that of France and the United Kingdom. Russia's population is nearly 2.5 times that of Italy. A country with a population of about 60 million, they're about more than 3 times larger in population than Spain. A country with a population of less than 50, and once again, we should also compare with Ukraine. A country with a population of about 41 million people, its population is about 3.5 times larger than Ukraine. Thus, it can be seen that, although Russia has a larger area than any country in Europe, and even larger than Europe, Russia's population only accounts for a very small part of the entire continent, and is not too different from countries that are much smaller in area compared to Russia. Moreover, Russia's population is aging. The proportion of elderly people is increasing and the birth rate is. Russians are currently very reluctant to have children. The characteristic of Russia's population is that the average population density is only 8.4 people per square kilometer, which is much lower than most countries in Europe. Russia's population is unevenly distributed, with the majority of residents concentrated in the western part of that is, the European region of this nation. Notably, large cities like Moscow and St. Petersburg have very high population density. The regions in Siberia and the Far East are very small due to harsh living conditions, and no one wants to live in such places. Especially, the cold weather requires living in urban areas to ensure living standards. Therefore, about 75% of Russia's population lives in urban areas. With what we have discussed from the overview of area, overview of population, overview of natural resource geography, economic challenges compared to Europe. Currently, Russia's GDP is approximately 2.06 trillion US dollars. Meanwhile, the GDP of the entire Europe, including European Union member countries and non-EU European countries, is about 22 trillion US dollars. Thus, Russia's GDP is only about 1/10 that of the whole of Europe. How does it compare to other developing countries in Europe? For example, compared to Germany, Germany's GDP is nearly double that of Russia. Its GDP is about half larger than the United Kingdom is also about half larger. Its GDP is equivalent to Italy. Those are the overall economic figures. While Russia's per capita income is around 14,000 US dollars. Meanwhile, the per capita income of the entire Europe is about 29,000 US dollars. This means the average Russian earns half as much as the average European. From this, we can see that, despite possessing abundant natural resources, a vast territory, Russia's economy is still less developed than many European countries, due to excessive reliance on natural resources and not truly effective economic management. Infrastructure development is uneven due to the overly large territory. The population is declining and aging, along with social issues and tense international relations due to sanctions, have caused Russia's economy to lag behind developed countries in Europe. Returning to the topic of geography, Russia has some prominent geographical features compared to Europe. For example, the longest river in Europe is the Volga River, which also flows entirely within Russian territory, with a length of about 3,530 kilometers, followed by the Danube River, the second longest river in Europe, over 2,800 kilometers long, flowing through many European countries. The Volga River plays an important role in Russia's economy, especially in transportation, goods, and energy sector. Many large hydroelectric plants are built along the river. This river also holds cultural value, considered the mother river of Russia. Many experts, songs, poems, and Russian artworks are inspired by the Volga River. Along the Volga River, many large artificial lakes have formed. From the construction of hydroelectric, these lakes not only provide energy, but also create economic development zones for Russia. Moreover, the highest mountain range in Europe is also located in Russia. This mountain range is in southern Russia, home to Mount Elbrus, the highest peak with an altitude of 5,642 meters above sea level, part of the Caucasus. Additionally, Europe still boasts its most famous mountain range, the Alps, but its highest peak is Mont Blanc, with an altitude of only 4,808 meters above sea level. The Caucasus Mountains are often considered the natural boundary between Europe and Asia. This is home to many ethnic groups and diverse cultures, such as Georgians, Armenians, Azerbaijanis, and many other ethnic groups. Each ethnic group has its own language and cultural traditions, but all are influenced by Russian language and culture. This region has a long history of conflicts and cooperation among ethnic groups, creating cultural diversity and rich. That makes this place very unique. Thank you for your interest in following this story with commentator Haitan's story. If you find it interesting, you can click the subscribe button today, as it's time to say goodbye. Subscribe to GNMI Go channel so you don't miss exciting videos.